Dear listener, while the kettle ticks in the kitchen and the rain taps politely on the window, I invite you to settle into a soft chair and pretend the outside world has been muted for a while. This is the first installment of By Thomas Waters, brought to you by the gentle folk at sonarplay.com, who still believe a yarn sounds better when it is told aloud. I am Thomas, your guide for the next little span. I shall read without bells or whistles, only words, pauses, and the occasional chuckle that escapes when a sentence insists upon it. Let us begin. When I was still green enough to think misfortune arrived only by telegram, life proved me wrong with all the quiet ceremony of a slammed door. One moment I was the master of my own small universe. The next I was measuring my future in cold pennies and the price of yesterday's pride. The Metropolitan Police took me in, not out of charity, but because desperation is a marvelous teacher, and I had already paid the tuition. Within the year, I distinguished myself by solving an artful fraud that had wrapped itself around a West End merchant like ivy round a drainpipe. My chief sent for me, studied me the way a surgeon studies an X-ray, and finally said, with a half-smile that could freeze soup, "I believe we may have met before, Mr. Waters. In another life?" I answered nothing, because silence sometimes keeps the best secrets. When he dismissed me, he added, "Tomorrow, I shall need you again. You will hear from me." 3 days later, the summons arrived, wrapped in discreet red wax. My orders were simple yet impossible. Track a gang of card sharps, blacklegs and paper counterfeiters who were skinning their marks with the delicacy of a violinist and the persistence of ivy. They moved like ghosts, left no scent, and always seemed to be 2 streets ahead of us. But this time they had tangled with the Dowager Lady Everton, whose son Charles Merton had gambled away not merely his inheritance but the roof above his mother's head. The lady herself, pride preserved in ice, received me in the grandest drawing-room money could rent. She surveyed me as though I were a plate of fish she had not ordered, and then deigned to speak. "My son is about to mortgage what remains of his honor. You will stop him, or you will watch him drown." I have rarely been given so little time to fail so spectacularly. From her account, I learned that Charles had fallen under the spell of one Sanford, a gentleman sharper whose smile could melt a sovereign, and whose handshake felt like a signed confession. Sanford plucked Charles like a ripe pear, then squeezed until the juice ran into his own pockets. Tonight they planned to meet again, this time at the Italian Opera. If luck rode with me, I might overhear the next move in the game. I walked into the opera house at 22 minutes past 10, just as the conductor raised his baton, just as the conductor raised his bat. My quarry had not yet arrived, so I lingered in the shadows like a bad conscience. When the music rose, I almost forgot why I was there. Melody can do that. But I was jolted back to business by the arrival of Sanford, suave as ever, with poor Charles in tow, looking like a man who had just bet his soul and lost the receipt. They swept into a box. I found an angle where I could watch without seeming to watch, and there I waited like patience on a monument. After the performance, Sanford suggested a nightcap at the European Coffee House. I tagged along, heart racing like a hansom cab in a hailstorm, and kept my face pleasant while my ears drank every syllable. The coffee was strong enough to pucker iron, but conversation never tasted so sweet. Sanford, sleek as an otter, let drop that a private gaming house awaited us farther east, he said to Charles, almost as an afterthought. Bring whatever you can raise by tomorrow night. The stakes will be higher than angels can fly, and the only rule is that there are no rules. I smiled politely, the sort of smile one offers when the knife is already between the ribs. Because tonight I am wearing evening clothes instead of a uniform, no one guesses I am the law in borrowed plumage. That is the first small mercy of disguise. Now, while the city's bells count 12 and the gaslights begin to wink out one by one, I have a report to write, pistols to clean, and a heart to steady for the storm that is surely gathering. But before I bid you good night, let me confess, I am grateful for your ears. A tale grows taller when it is carried on breath, and tonight you have carried mine. Until tomorrow, then, when the cards are dealt again, and the dice rattle like bones, this is Thomas, signing off gently. With the kettle cooling and the rain still gossiping at the window, keep your wits sharp and your back to the wall. The city never sleeps, but sometimes it pretends to. Well met again. Good traveler of sound, Thomas here, steering us